Eager Raven returns to Kickstarter in its first trade paperback, collecting issues 1 through 4 in one full-color volume. Eager Raven, Heir of the First Unicorn, is the story of a unicorn princess exiled into the mortal realm after she is betrayed by her elf prince husband-to-be. Dragons overtake her kingdom, and how she trains to become a knight with the help of an unusual trio of blacksmiths. It's a mature audience telling of the classic hero's journey with a soap opera twist, so check out Eager Raven, Heir of the First Unicorn, Volume 1 today.
Oswald is the greatest sorcerer of our time. He lives in New York City, and he happens to be a mouse, and he has serious evil goblin problems. In this 4-issue epic adventure, Oswald finds himself rescuing a traveling warrior gnome, Daphne, who seeks revenge on an evil goblin who murdered his family. A goblin that now lives with one of Oswald's neighbors, a giant spider. What will Oswald and his newfound friend, Daphne, do? Find out in the pages of It Broke Free and Couldn't Read, now on Kickstarter.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Sketchy Saturday. As you can see, Jimmy is not here today. He's out gallivanting, trying to sell some comics. I saw he kind of posted speaking of Oswald, he posted a picture of him doing Oswald earlier today. So he's out there peddling his wares. However, we're going to peddle our wares right here on Sketchy Saturday. I'm C. Michael Lanning, independent artist. Of course, I've done stuff. Also a show coordinator over on Dispatches from Outside the Box. And as you can see, before we go around the room and see what everybody else is working on, I'll show you this. This morning I will be inking what I started drawing last week, which is a cover for Chad Perkins' Sparkle Dog. Kind of just made it blue and be checking that out. Let's see here. Let me put it up on the screen real quick because I'm like showing it like I could see it really big, but you can't. Haha. But
very cool.
So
yep.
It's still early, guys. It's still early. Yeah. Thank you. Yep. So I will be inking that. I will not be finishing inking that today. I promise you. That is not going to happen. But anyway, let's move on. Let's meet some other people here. MarV, introduce yourself, sir. Tell us what you're working on.
Hey, everyone. Nice to be here once again. I'm MarV, creator of the Sim Killer, creator, artist, and all the rest. And today I'm gonna try to start my third comic, Michael Hunter of Men, from the miniseries The Sim Killer that I'm doing right now. So yeah, let's see how this works, because I took a picture of myself because I'm gonna be the bad guy on this comic, and yeah, I'm gonna start with myself on the first panel. So
awesome. Yeah. So you see this. So this is a historic. If you're watching right now, you're watching history as MarV starts his new comic book. So speaking of history, we have Rodney Fyke working on his Predator that he started a few weeks ago, and that thing is looking good, Rodney. Why don't you tell us about yourself and your piece, man?
Let's see. Well, I'm doing this Predator. Just something fun that I thought would be kind of cool to work on over a couple of weeks, and just so everybody could watch it grow and see my process. But I am a 30-year veteran of the independent comic book market. I am a writer, artist, colorist, pretty much everything. I've done. I am with Hasm Productions right now. That's our company, and we do books such as Peanut Pudding and Jelly, Roadkill Rampage, Unchained, and Pitter Patter. Currently working on some new projects that we hope to get out to the masses here sometime next year, and yeah, so that's who I am and what I do.
Awesome. Yeah, see, it's just early in the morning trying to get going. But of course, and he may be last, but he's certainly not least. This is Mr. John Celestri. Sir, introduce yourself, and I'm going to pull up your drawing here. Let us know what you're working on.
Right. Well, I'm John Celestri. I've been a traditional classic 2D animator since the early 70s, also drawing comic books. I've done all kinds of material. I mean, I animated the original appearance of Boba Fett in the Star Wars Holiday Special. I worked on Dragon's Lair, Space Ace, those arcade video games. Animated on He-Man and She-Ra. Worked on Rock and Rule, a classic, 2D animation from feature from Canada back in the day. And now I'm doing comic books. I've got a crowdfunder that just launched this morning, Bloodwing Angel Chronicles. I'll be working today with the variant cover. It'll be a wraparound cover, and nice. So I'll have two different covers to that you can choose from. So I'm doing skulls, the groundwork skulls on the ground today. I mean, I don't know how far I'll go because there are a bunch of skulls. And,
they get tedious after a while.
Yeah, it does, but it'll show you the unglamorous side of art.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You have to do it and still make fun of it. So there you go.
Yeah, right. Well, you know what? I was reading a meme today, and I'm sure as artists, you've heard this before from writers. With movies, you have this budget, so you have to spend all this money. But if you want an armada coming out of space in hyperdrive in the middle of an asteroid field, battling another space alien, it costs the same amount. It doesn't cost anything. It's really it's real easy to do that in a comic book. And the meme had the artist jump up and start strangling the writer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Wait a minute.
Huh. Well, I'm just going to play around with this and just really work on it, and you'll see the wonderfulness of the art as it takes place. See, I'm scanned right now. I've got the very, very rough layout of the various skulls and whatnot that I drew on this, and now I just, to clean it up, or at least really start playing with it, I just do the equivalent of putting another sheet of paper over it in a light box, and what I've done is I've just faded out on my Cintiq, rather on the Clip Studio Paint, and on my Huion tablet, I've just faded down that thing. And so now I'll just start playing with this and see how far I get.
Awesome.
Come on. Okay, go. Okay, go.
I wanted to ask you, especially that MarV's over there using reference. I was watching one of the shows. I can't remember if it was Comics by Night or something, but you had made a comment, and I don't think they got to address it, about you look at the reference and then I don't know if you said do it from memory or.
Oh, okay. Well, my experience has been that what you do is you study the reference, you flip through it and you analyze it. You take notes, and you might look at it, but it really depends on how exact you have to be. Okay, and even still, you don't need to trace anything. If you understand reference, then you can then take your, apply what you've seen in that piece of reference and then make it your own. And so you keep from being literal.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that people don't understand. Well, I don't say they don't understand, but it's usually the money people who say, okay, let's do it. We'll use this here and we'll save some money. Okay,
right.
It's true, but you don't get as good a response. You don't get allowed the artist to become the actor in that scene.
Yeah. Like kind of like you don't get the exaggeration, the expression, and feeling.
Right. You don't. Yeah, and that's something that even the old Disney animators, well, the first time they really used a reference like that was in Snow White for the Queen.
Ah.
Mm-hmm.
And they had an actress, do all that, all the various posing of mirror on the wall and what have you. But Art Babbitt, who was in charge of the Queen, they would take photographs of poses and looking at the reference, and he'd flip through it, and then he'd say, "Okay, I'm using that as my reference, and then I'll take it even further." And there's a subtle dynamic expression that you could see when she's lifting her, like her eyes were like having an accent and a dynamic aspect to the posing. And that's the thing that animators and comic book artists need to be able to do, which is take the expression, use the reference, but then make it your own.
Yeah.
Play with it. You're studying the posing. And the same thing with animation. Like, you don't just draw the exact timing. You have to, you see, how you can you subtly adjust it and change it.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, go ahead, Rod.
I was going to say a perfect example of that, John, is an artist by the name of Sean Galloway. He goes by the name of Cheeks.
Yeah.
He takes a lot of parkour photographs, and he uses those for Spider-Man poses.
Oh, okay.
And he'll superimpose his take on the pose on top of the pose. And it's just that he borrows the fluid motion of the pose and the organic feel of it, and he adapts it. He applies his style to it, so it's still the pose, but it's definitively Sean Galloway art, and it's really one of the best examples of using reference as a tool and not as a crutch.
Right.
Yeah. Because the thing about Sean is very cartoony.
Yes,
he's very cartoony in what he does. So it's interesting to see that transition.
Yeah, it's really cool.
And so he's very much into exaggeration.
Yeah, very much, and such a nice guy.
Well, and if it works, it works. Here's the thing: is that at a certain point, if you've studied the posing and analyze what makes it work, at some point in your career, you find that you don't need reference.
Yep.
Right.
And that's where you want to be. It's like, when you start as a child, you're drawing and you're copying people. And sometimes you start, even when you're very young, you might trace something. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Right.
So many times.
And then you go, okay, well, I mean, I remember, being 5 years old and tracing a Bugs Bunny thing. And my mom, here's the thing. I remember my mom saying, "Oh, that's a really good drawing." Or I think it might have been my young aunt, she said, "A very good drawing." And actually, I was embarrassed because it wasn't mine.
Right.
Yeah.
I had traced it. And I don't know. It was just the way, my mind worked. I said, okay, that's not mine. So from that point on, I stopped tracing.
Yep.
And I started to now, there are a lot of scam artists who never get past that point. And they're always tracing and copying somebody else and sloughing it off as their own work. I've seen it so many times early on when people thought that the Preston Blair book was not known, and I've seen so many ripoffs of rabbits and owls, in artwork. This is back in the early '60s. And people will think, "Oh, well, no one will ever know." Yeah, well, it's the internet. Everything is known.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Internet has exposed many a fraud over the last 10 or so years.
True, very true. I'm sure we could think of one or two of them.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing too is if you have a brain in your head, you know that you can't, especially now that everybody could just take a screenshot and put it up and put you on point. You can't do that stuff anymore. You have to, you have to buckle down and learn this stuff because there are too many trolls out there that are just waiting for something to pounce on.
Yeah.
Well, one thing that I've tried to look at before is you see those model sheets where they have, the different expressions.
Oh, yeah.
And things like that. I can't stand those because there's something about those models that it looks fake. The energy's not there. It's like, okay, look mad. All right, I'm going to look mad. This is me looking mad. And it just doesn't work for me.
Well, okay. I'll jump in here. Those expression poses, if you start what you're doing is you're learning how to squash and stretch. What's the plasticity of those expressions?
Right.
Okay. And we all get that. I mean, we've done that so that you have more than one artist, have a starting point. And when you have you might have 5 artists all working on the same character. And I would agree with you that the generic posing is really bad. Okay.
Yeah. I'm not talking about, like you looking in the mirror. I mean, I'm talking about those like headshots.
Yeah. And I'm referring to that too. That's your starting point. Okay. And then what happens is that the lead animator will be working on some, the art or lead artist, whatever, has a number of scenes, and then they will start say close-ups of expressions and what have you. And what will happen is that after maybe 3 or 4 scenes that they've liked, that have been said, okay, this is the character is good, then you start pulling out poses and facial expressions from the scenes, the keys, and then you start, building a model sheet for expression so that the lead animator can guide the other animators on how far an expression would work. There might be a particular, energy that you're trying to convey in each drawing, and the only way to do that is to show other artists what you've done on the page.
Okay.
And that's where it becomes an important tool, because otherwise, how are you going to be able to do it? And that's what happens when you have, artists, just drawing it instead of it being a puppet that you're moving. The puppet material, once you've done it once, you have that asset, and you reuse, and it's reusable.
Right. Yeah. I guess it's just that energy's not there, and. But yeah, you'll see how the muscles move and everything, and there.
Oh yeah, and once again, it's it's out of context. That's the thing, is that you don't know what the posing is, and what was that scene, and what was happening, and that's the kind of thing that it's one of the hardest things to actually, pull off, successfully, because you're starting from scratch, so you don't know really, how to make it work, and so there's a lot of. I remember drawing, the from Rock and Rule, for example, the feature films. The characters, Cindy and Quadhole and Mylar, I needed to hear the voice of the actor, so that I can understand what the inflection is. And that's what you, see. I think what you're referring to is that there is no context for that expression.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. It's just they kind of look like they're making the expression, but they always look like they're on the verge of laughing at how silly they feel.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, totally understand. And that's the thing is, but you need preparation, and I don't think you'll get that much in TV shows today. You won't get, it'd be very difficult, to have it, because they're generic, they're generic voices. They're all doing the same sort of basic, facial expressions and, what have you. And a lot of times the material is done overseas. So the context of this is getting into the weeds. I hope you don't mind, but with dialogue, you need to understand the language and the context and the intonations, to be able to capture that on your facial expression.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I know when I'm writing pitter patter, the dialogue is always what comes to me first. And since I created the characters, I do the voices, and I will sit there and I will act out the scenes, read the scenes out loud, and kind of look at myself in the mirror and look at the inflections and stuff on my face, and like, oh, okay, well, I'm doing this because you do stuff that you subconsciously don't realize you're doing, whether it's raising an eyebrow or raising the corner of your lip as a response or things like that. Mm-hmm. And that helps me, when I'm thumbnailing out my poses and stuff for the issue.
Right.
But yeah,
and that's the thing is that here's what I would say, and this is what I would used to do, is as a young person, as a young animator, I would look at them. I would have a small mirror, propped on my desk, and you'll see that constantly in some of the old traditional animator shots, photos, and they'll be making expressions. But I would be looking at, for example, I'll say, "What are you talking about?" I would then see how my eyebrows, how I would be acting it.
Right.
Yeah. And then I would be able to feel it. And then I would then be able to draw it from the feeling.
Yeah.
Versus posing it. Because what you're looking for, see, is and Rodney, I think what you're looking at is how do you capture, how is your drawing a facial expression capturing that little moment of energy, but it's always, you have to capture it like you would a sports photographer captures, poses and movement going around. You can't just pose it.
Right. It has to have that spontaneity.
Yeah.
The thing, like with actors, I could do with actors when they're in the midst of acting, like not like when they're in a scene and there's the emotions are flying, because they're going to give those expressions because they're feeling those emotions or they're betraying those emotions.
Right.
And I could get that one, but just the model. But I will say this thing, you talk about feeling that. Yep. Yesterday I was having problems with a pose, and I actually just, instead of looking up reference, I just kind of made myself do the pose.
Yes. Absolutely.
Oh yeah. My phone is full of pictures of myself doing poses.
Well, I didn't take a picture. I was just trying, the way it felt where the muscle moved.
Absolutely.
Yep.
That's it. Yep. What you're doing is you're doing a mental 10-second sketch.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what you're doing. You're analyzing how your body feels, and that's usually forces. You're not thinking about your, positioning a hand or whatnot. You're feeling, what would happen here? The shoulder was lifting here. I was doing that, and so you go back to the, your what's the word? Choreographing. Okay.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
You're choreographing a fight. Well, even you're doing the placement. There's difference between saying, okay, well, be over here and there. But when you play it and when you dance it, when you do whatever it is, you have to put that energy into it to be believable.
Yeah, and we used to do that back in the 90s when I was doing my superhero book. We would actually, me and one of the other guys would pose in the positions at the fight, and we would choreograph it while the artist was sitting there and quickly sketching out our poses and stuff. And we did that for an entire fight scene for an entire issue, and that just became our method. We choreographed out all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that is the great thing about drawing, is that you're capturing your expression, your energy.
Yeah.
And you're creating your own reality. And so in being able to put yourself in that position, then the audience will believe you.
Right.
Yeah. More authentic.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know if you've ever, and I'm sure, Rodney, you probably have heard Todd McFarlane or Jim Lee talk about when they're drawing and they're just, making sound effects. They're just getting all into it. And
Oh, yeah.
I guess that's where all that scribble scratch comes from. Anyway, they said they're feeling the drawing. They're feeling the the energy behind it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you would think that's a natural thing to do. And maybe for some people it is. It's not for me. I have to remind myself to do that sometimes.
Oh yeah, I'm always doing it. I'm always walking around doing the sound effects and sitting here. I mean, if you put a camera on me while I'm sitting here creating, I should do that sometime, because it's just a laugh riot. And I'm just in my own little world. I'm in my own head, and I do the voices, I do the sound effects, I do the facial expressions, just sitting here by myself. And if I had a camera on me while I was doing that, that would just be gold.
Hey, you're not crazy if you have a purpose for doing it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm sure, of course, a crazy person would probably say they have one, but still.
That saying that you're not crazy if you hear voices in your head. You're not crazy unless you start talking back.
Yeah.
And when I hear that, I'm like, oh shit, I'm in trouble, because I talk back to him all the time.
That has a production says, OMG, he drives me nuts talking to people in his head.
It's like,
I'm constantly going, are you talking to me?
That's it.
I said, you're either crazy or you're a writer, right?
Exactly.
So yeah, no, because I was going to ask when I saw that, I was thinking, so we kind of do, you kind of want to move towards moving away from reference, but it's like I said, okay, yeah, I did the pose just to see where everything fell, but there were certain things that I still had to go see a picture to see how it. I'm going to tell you one thing that I have problems with that aggravates the hell out of me. I'll get it and I'll forget how I did it. The hand on the hip. Just the arm, because of the way it goes back and forward, it's a pain in the neck to get that right.
Well, you know what? I'm going to just tell you that the only thing to do it is forget the form. Draw the force, just the line of action. In other words, if you got something that's moving forward, put your line and just boom. And then, it's it's really second nature sometimes, but you have to just keep on doing it. Do your breakfast poses or just doodles, and just do that, and then you'll be able to just understand, what you're trying to get across.
As easy as that sounds, I'm thinking how hard that is because I'll do gesture drawings.
Yeah.
Going through the models and stuff.
Yeah.
And I have to stop myself because if I keep going, I'm going to end up, I'm looking at the forms. It's like, wait, no, stop. This is not what you're supposed to do.
That's right. You just spend, just spend a few seconds on it. That's all you need to do. Just a few seconds, and then you can play, and then you go, so, okay, that's it for that. And then you look at that. Just don't overdraw it. I mean, when I worked, whenever I'm doing anything, I'm doodling like crazy. I mean, I'll just go boom, 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 and then if I start noodling, then I know, okay, forget it. That's not the stage I'm supposed to be at.
Right.
But then that's me. Everybody has their own process.
Right. Well, and I think learning that, that's a constant thing because I'm not very self-aware. Like you hear people like, I don't drink caffeine after a certain time because then I don't go to sleep, or certain foods give me gas. I'm just not that self-aware. So I'm trying to be like, okay, trying to figure out how I drew something outside of technique.
Mm-hmm.
Just how it's really trying to jumpstart yourself on how to think when you're drawing more than what you know on how to draw, I guess, if that makes any sense. It's like, yes, I know it's a cylinder, but I'm trying to think how to capture that movement, that form.
Mm-hmm. Well, still, it's a matter of sometimes you can overthink yourself.
Yes.
Okay. and that's the difference. I mean, I would be shown. Okay. There sometimes the people and artists, and I've had to, shut my mouth or keep my mouth closed when one or two directing animators would start showing me how to do a pose. And I looked at it, I start looking at it, and I say, in my mind, I'm saying, okay, bite your tongue. Don't say anything. Because I've seen them draw the same damn pose over and over again.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, okay, you're not telling me anything other than place the hand here and place it there and so on and so forth. What are you feeling?
Right.
I mean, the drawing will look beautiful, but what are you feeling? And that's sometimes, you have two different types of art, in terms of in animation. The drawing looks good, but it's manipulated from without and not from within. And those are the kinds of, when you can work from within, then you wind up with poses that you've never seen before.
Yeah.
And that's what you're looking for. You're not looking for stock. You're looking for something that is unique to that moment.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm
No. Don't be sorry. Not at all. No, I was reading Take Ferret's comment. Even though there's not a cartoonish stretching and squeezing, I did an expression page for Neon Revenant because faces change as a person makes different expressions.
Mm-hmm.
But even with that, even though I'll learn from anybody, it doesn't matter what your style is.
Right.
If it's cartoonish, if it's realistic, I'll learn it and apply it to how I think. Honestly, I learned a long time ago to not and I used to do this, and I think this is just kind of a beginner thing, is you would find people of the style you want to mimic.
Yes.
And so you would see how they draw. And it doesn't really help because, they have a tendency to not remember filling in those basic elements, getting that squash and stretch or those dynamic forms and what have you. But I learned, just able to take, I've learned from a lot from cartoonists. I've learned from superhero comic book artists, things like that. And just taking bits and pieces here or the whole and applying that. It's really, figuring out your own technique because it's not going to be the same thing as you watching on YouTube.
Yeah.
It's just not.
No. You do have to bring your life experience and your point of view into, through your pencil. But, once again, you have to be willing to experiment and not just say, okay, I'm going to play it safe. Don't try to make a perfect drawing every time you do something. It's not going to be, because reality is there's a lot of squash and stretch in reality. The body's always moving.
Yeah, I find sometimes when I'm struggling with a pose, I'll just go into the spiral thing, spiral technique, and I'll just shoosh my hand back and forth, and then I'll consciously think of a mouth or an eye or something. And I'll kind of try to get that form. And I'll step back and I'll look at my mess and I'll pull things out of it.
Yep.
Whether it's, taking a piece of tracing paper and light box in it or whatever onto a different thing and putting it all together. And then to kind of get you out of your funk, and you find your way through that mess. And that's helped me on many occasions pull out that pose from the sketchy vomit that I just put on the page.
What you've just described is my entire work process, for the last 50 years.
Yeah.
Basically, I've been vomiting on my page for a long time.
Yeah.
And that's what you find, is because that it's coming from within. You just don't worry that there's the scratchy swirling stuff is the beginnings. I mean, you're swirling around and trying to find something. If you've already found it and if you're dragging it up from your mind and you are, just putting it, where you've seen it before, well, that's not going to be anything new. I mean, you can understand that you did something like that before and you understand the mechanics of it, but apply it to the new situation, and so as you say, you vomit every time you go and say, okay, it's called gag reflex. If you're going inside and you're trying to pull it out, you're going to do it out on your page.
Yeah, and the good thing about vomiting out on the page is you're never going to do it the same way twice. So it's always going to be something new.
That's right. Good Saturday morning breakfast.
I was going to say the same thing. Hell of a Saturday morning topic.
Eat up.
If you're just tuning in, we're talking about sketching, not vomiting. Well,
that's a whole
please don't go vomiting on your page thinking that you.
Well, listen, we could be ultra, intellectual about the whole thing, or we can say, all right, this is the real, nitty gritty of what artists are really doing.
Yeah. When it takes it to, there's a lot of artists out there that want to look, and I look, I say that, and I myself have been guilty of that. We want to look good. We want people to look and say, "Oh, this! Look how fantastic they are." We don't want you to see the mess that we put out there. So we were able to. People who want other people to learn are willing to actually throw that mess out there. It's beneficial to the whole artistic community. If that makes any sense.
Well, I think it's sometimes good, especially for kids, to see that. because I remember being a kid, and when I say a kid, I'm talking like my early 20s, and going to shows and watching guys who I've been following for 15 years in the comic books doing that, and listening to them bitch about not being able to get a pose. And I'm like, oh my God, they're human. Right. They have the same struggles that I do. And it makes it gives a kid hope. It's like, I'm not a piece of garbage. I can do this. So I think it's a good thing to show them your scribble pages and stuff. And I think that's one of the most invaluable things, and I can't express it enough to young folks, is to go to shows and interact with the artists. Look at their sketchbooks. Look at their struggle. There is a lot of in between from what they've been through to what you see on that finished page. And if you can see that as a young kid starting out and realize that it's, you've got 10,000 bad drawings in you too, you got to get through them. It's just, it clears that water of muddy despondence when you're sitting alone in your studio and you're like, okay, well, they all went through it, so now it's my turn to go through it, and I can get through this because they got through it. Yeah. And it's all just a learning.
I heard one artist, and I don't remember who it was. They have two different sketchbooks. They have the sketchbooks they show everybody, and then they have the sketchbooks that's just weird.
Yeah, absolutely. The backpack sketchbooks. They keep them in the backpack.
Hey, Bart, I'm gonna put you up real quick. I want to see where you're at. Look at you.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find my style because I still struggling with my style because I want to draw faster, but I'm still trying to move on. But I'm kind of blocked because I'll try for many years to mimic Buscema and other guys, and it doesn't work. So we were talking about mimicking other people, and I've been doing that for a couple of years, trying to draw like this guy or that guy, and it really doesn't work. And I thought that I found my my style, but I need to get better on understand form and understand the best way for me to draw faster and better. Still struggling on that point.
Well, I hear you. Look, you and me both. Look, look, put John up real quick. He showed. You want to show us your sketch?
Okay. Hold on a second. Let me just move this for myself. Okay, this is from about 1987. Okay, there's a sketchbook here, and these are just sketches I was doing. I was just trying to find, just doodling.
Yeah.
Just trying to understand what I'm coming up with. Let's see here. Just even sometimes just doing stuff like that.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
But the biggest thing here is, like, for example, here. Just doing poses. Real. Those are like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And that,
although your 10-second poses make me jealous, John.
And that's basically how I would start any animation back then, but I would still be doing it from my mind, from just from a feeling.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's 1987. Where are we? 30 some odd years ago.
Oh my God!
We need to stop that. We just
stop what?
The whole 30-something years ago. Because I do remember 1987.
Yeah.
Well, listen. I wish that I could talk to Art Babbitt and whatnot. I wish they would do stuff with him. And there are so many people that are so great that you don't really see and understand what they did, what the process was, because they never kept it.
It would have. I wish a lot of these guys would have been around now, or this technology would have been around then, because it definitely has provided like we never would. If it wasn't for this, we never would have met each other.
Yeah,
right.
You know, none of us would. And it would. I think there would have been interesting to see a lot of these guys kind of go over what you know, to spread their knowledge, as it were.
Yeah.
Of course, there'd be guys that wouldn't touch it, like Bill Watterson or oh my gosh, why does his name escape me? Steve Ditko. But there'd be people out there that would want to show what they've done.
Oh yeah. Well, and that's you have to have be conscious of that. What you've done is worthwhile to show. I mean, I know Watterson. He's very adamant about not, being more than a cartoonist.
Yeah. And I said, and he's around. I know. Let me put it down. I know he's around, but he just doesn't. And Ditko was around for a little bit. I mean, we just lost Ditko a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But they were so disillusioned by what was going on. But Mark, you were talking about trying to find your style. One of the people that have my wife really loves is Sam Keith. And when you see Sam Keith and he's talking about the little like tethers and stuff like that on cloaks, he said he's trying to draw like Todd McFarlane. So what does that tell you? So,
Marv, one thing that I would say, and I get that struggle that you're going through, is I would just, I would quickly do a page just out of your head, and don't think about anything. Just take it out of your head and do it quickly, and you will see that you'll see a Bushima brow, or you'll see a Bushima flared nostril, and it'll be unconscious stuff that you're not even aware of. And from that, you will start, your style will start shining through. Because to this day, when I do my sketches, I have that Bushima furrowed brow and that Bushima flared nostril, and it's just unconscious. I don't even realize I'm doing it, because I just devoured all of his Conan books and all of his Avengers work and stuff that. And it's just there. So I think sometimes, where you're at right now is you're struggling with your look. And I think if you just do quickly, not it doesn't have to be the finished product, just be a practice piece, and do that for a while, and you'll start seeing yourself coming through the darkness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Definitely. Yeah.
Oh, thanks for the advice.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, you're not. Don't think of it as a production. It's not going to go in the book. It's just, I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to mess around and
having fun.
I'm going to find my way.
I'm going to tell you this, Marv, and I'm not blowing smoke, because it doesn't help you as an artist to do that. But the way that you handle negative space in your art is very definitive style to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think you do have a style. I think you're so close to it, it's hard for you to see it.
Yeah.
It's just aggravating. It's really aggravating.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Usually, we as individual artists will be the last ones to be able to say, okay, this is recognizable.
Yeah.
Because even though you could recognize your own piece, you just assume that that's only because you're you.
Yeah.
Not like it's like you're individual, or unique.
Right.
But, but that's why you got to show it. You just can't, you can't sit and draw and just leave it in your garage somewhere or in your room. You do have to show your material out there.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Which is scary.
Yeah, it is very scary, but I think eventually, Marv, you'll get to a point where you spent all this time learning and wanting to mimic your idols and stuff, and you'll start pulling out your style from that. And when you get to that point, you'll be like, oh, and it's unconscious, it's unavoidable. It's and you'll realize, okay, I'm never going to be John Buscema. I'm gonna be the uniquely utilized negative space guy, and you'll unconsciously come to a point where you accept that, and you're like, okay, well, I don't want to draw like John because I'm more comfortable with what I'm doing here, and then it'll dawn on you, well, shit, this is what I do. This is my style.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, John, for the influence and the guy, the gutters on the bowling alley, and point me in a direction. But this is what I've been searching, and this is what I found, and this is what I've come up with. And hey, this is me.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's every artist's journey with their influences.
What's sad is you see, and this happens and you go through this for years. Don't mistake it because you're not a beginner artist to me at all.
No.
But I see that a lot in beginner artists is they come out trying to have their style and trying to, they're worried about their style. And it's like, okay, learn what you need to learn first. Your style's going to come through. That's what happened with me. Instead of trying to, okay, this is how I'm going to draw from now on. It's just what happens. It's just what the piece tells me to draw, I guess. No, I'm not psychotic, I promise. But one thing I do notice a lot of these guys, if you go back and you look at the progress of their careers, they're not drawing the same that they were when they first made it on the scene.
No.
Yeah. I've seen an interview with John Romero Jr. And then I saw a channel that I follow called Comic Tropes, and the host was talking about his evolution, and sometimes I don't understand the evolution of an artist because Romero Jr. was. I think, in my opinion, he was so great at the beginning of his career. He had a lot of the influence of his father.
Mm-hmm.
And back in the day, I really enjoyed that connection that he had, his style in comparison with his father's style. But then the more he was doing, the less cool I thought that his art began to look like, and now he's so blocky that you don't see his style, because for me his style was when I started reading his books, when he started at Marvel, and now he's so different from that time. And I know that he has this famous quote that I do. Deadline. My style is deadline style. I quite understand that in a point, but in the other side, I don't, because you became more detailed. Right now, he's more detailed than he was back in the day. But back in the day, in my opinion, he drew better. I don't know if I'm expressing myself.
No, because when you said John Romero Jr., the first thing that came to my mind was Blockhead. But I'm glad you said what you said about the deadline thing, because that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
because what he's doing is he's concentrating on shape.
Yeah.
And he's putting those shape, the rectangle, the circle, and everything out there to get it going. And it's an old technique. It's something that I kind of just realized that a lot of the older people who are producing, and you'll know the name. I'm not going to say the name. It gets said a lot, but somebody who could draw a page really fast, and that's what he concentrated on, was the circles, the triangles, and the rectangles. and that's how come he could do it, because he saw those shapes.
Yeah.
And that's fine, and it works perfectly fine. But I wouldn't be surprised too for Junior that he was trying to really strike out to make his own mark aside from his father.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it just kind of it falls that way. It's really hard to judge a comic book artist in the sense of deadlines.
Yeah.
Because if they do have a lot of work, it's not going to be their best work. They're going to get it. It's going to be good most of the time, but it's not going to be their best work because there's other pressures that they have to contend with.
Well, and another thing to add on top of that is when you're dealing with deadlines, and John, does everything loose, is who's inking him.
This is true too.
That is going to make a world of difference.
Very much true.
Scott Hannah's inking him, it's gonna look a lot nicer than if Bob Wyacek was inking him. Wyacek's a great inker, but he tended to, in my opinion, simplify John Byrne or Paul Smith's pencils and just ink the essentials. So, and that's, sometimes, John's under a deadline, but then, Klaus Janson or whoever gets his pages, and they're under a deadline, and it's you're at the mercy of the deadline. And so I think when you look at John's stuff on Superman or any of his recent stuff, compare it to his work on Kick-Ass when he was doing it at his own pace, you'll see a drastic difference.
Oh, yeah.
Because he had more time to concentrate on the artwork, and he didn't have to deal with editors and corporate folks and shareholder opinions and stuff like that, so he could just do him.
Yeah, unfortunately, because of the commercial demands, they never really give you enough time.
Right.
No, yeah.
And that's the problem, is that you had a particular, it takes so many hours to work on something, and if the production manager, is not giving you that time, well then you had you're limited.
Yep.
Yeah, you got to produce. You got to get it out.
It has to get it done. You have to get it done.
Yeah. So we look at it as an art thing, and they're looking at production.
Yeah. It's the old art versus business.
Oh yeah.
Struggle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember reading stuff from Jim Shooter talking about when he was writing. He learned, it took him about a year or so to learn it, but if you go back and you try to finesse a script or, keep polishing what you've done, you have to get to a point where you just, okay, let it go. Let it go, because I have to get on to the next one. And that's really helpful. That was really helpful for me. And, I tend to get bogged down in the details of, well, it's got to be the way it is in my head and yada, yada, yada. And, and through producer B bashing me in the head and my own sense and sensibilities of the influences of Shooter and stuff like that, let it go, move on. Because it doesn't have to be exact. Nobody knows how close it is to what's in your head, except you let it go, move on.
Mm-hmm.
Is it entertaining? That's the most important thing.
Yeah.
Again, you could, and sometimes you're 85% of the way just on the first go.
Yeah.
It's your closest, connection to doing the work. You're emotionally connected right there. It's when you start, molding it, is that you've gone past that. You're now trying to corral something.
Yeah, you keep futzing with it and futzing with it and futzing with it. Just be done with it. Move on.
That's right. Y'all keep convicting me. Keep doing that. It's like maybe I spent too much time on that panel. Probably. Rob Guillory, who's a native of Louisiana, the first guy I ever looked at my profile portfolio, does a shoe and farmhand for Image. I probably mentioned it before, but he made a statement in an interview before. He had, in doing comic book art, he had to learn to be okay with bad art.
Yeah.
He's like, not everything bad, but just it's not, that panel's not going to be what I want it to be. I just have to,
right.
If it conveys what it's supposed to convey, I've got to move on.
Yeah, and the thing is, it doesn't have to be. It just has to convey what it needs to convey. And if you think about when you read comics, as much as you might like artist A or artist B, you really don't. You just read the panel and move on.
Yeah.
So it serves. You have to think about it as it serves a function. It serves a purpose, and move on. And then us nerds that go back and Google the artwork again and again and again and put it up on a pedestal, that's for us. But production wise and product wise, when we read it, when we read the story for what it is, a story, we read it and move on to the next panel, and read it, move on to the next panel. And in doing that and being able to do that, you've done your job. It serves its purpose. So don't get bogged down in the quagmire of shit that's in your head. Just get it done and move on.
That's right. If you keep doing that, you'll never get your Netflix deal. It'll never happen.
Yeah.
And we're all looking for that Netflix deal.
But
okay.
But no, well, that's the thing, and that's what I think about when I do art. Exactly what you said, Rodney, is the nerds like us who look at that and pore over that art to see every line and everything. And I don't see the imperfection, even though I do art of somebody else's stuff, unless it's really out of whack. Well, but they'll sit there and they'll tell you real quick, this was wrong. This wasn't the line I was trying to do. It's like, I don't see it, but
well, I think I might have addressed this point last week, but the artwork that we got framed and I've got hanging in the studio now.
Yeah.
I walk over to it all the time and I'll stand there and study it, and it is full of imperfections. And I bought a page from out in San Diego, and it's Chris Pachallo X-Men page, and Tim Townsend inks. And I was talking to Tim about that particular page down at Heroes Con a few years back.
Yeah.
And he was talking about, I was like, I got the windmill page from 363. He's like, oh, yeah. And he was talking about the intersecting lines of the windmill fans and stuff like that. And he was just talking about how he was just trying to create that field of depth with the different line weights and stuff. And I was like, well, that's why I bought the page, because it's got the textures of the wooden fence in the foreground with the grass and the stones. And it looks like wood, and it looks like grass, and it looks like stone because of the way he rendered it.
Yeah.
And then the windmill's got the technical look to it, but it's also organic enough. And he pulled off the proper line weights and stuff. And he was like, he kind of rolled his eyes and like cringed because, they are full of imperfections, but that's why I bought the page. That's what made it beautiful to me.
Yeah.
Is it's everything we've been talking about for the last 20 minutes. It's the imperfection. It's the production. Just get done and move on. and I just love it. I stand there and find myself staring at it, all the time.
What were you going to say, John? Before I interrupted you.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Sorry.
That's okay.
But sometimes those, like you said, those imperfections. It's kind of like that whole broken line technique.
Yeah,
where your brain fills in the when you do look at a piece of art, and you could go back and I promise, if you are a huge fan of the early image books, and you became an artist because of that, go back and look at the early image books. They're not going to hold as much as fantastic. It's not going to be as fascinating as it was before.
No,
and it's not because it's bad art, because what you remember is that energy.
Yeah,
is what they were trying to convey.
And it's the older I get, and the older those books get, and I go back and I look at them. It becomes more and more apparent that there really was very little editing going on in any of those books, because there's a lot of energy and there's a lot of unnecessary lines.
Well, and like I have I'm not a huge Jim Lee fan. I'm not, I like Jim. Jim's a good artist. And a lot of people swear by Jim. But I was looking at I do have his art book. I picked it up for like $10 at Barnes and Noble. So it was on the clearance. Like, it's not a bad art book to have.
Right.
And what I was looking at really was his skyscrapers and his buildings and stuff, because that's what I'm trying to, get a feel for. Try to understand getting those right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And but you could really see if you go back and you look at his Gen 13 stuff versus, and the same thing goes for J. Scott Campbell. You look at his Gen 13 stuff or his early Wildcat stuff, and then you come back and look at it he's doing now. It's almost the same style, but it's not really. It's amazing he's let some stuff go.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in a bad way. I don't mean that like in an old age, I'm getting fatter. I let stuff go.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, that's just 30 years of experience.
Yeah.
I don't need all this to get the job done.
I was at MegaCon last year, and I was sitting there drawing, and guy came up, and he said he liked what I was doing because he could tell what it was. He said he didn't have to sit there and concentrate and try to make out the lines, and that meant a lot to me, in a sense, because you're kind of like, oh, I really want to be detailed, because you know why I want to be detailed, because it looks cool. That's why.
Yeah,
it's not because it helps the art, not because I think it's cool.
Right. No, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. But you can convey what you want to convey in simple lines. It's just how it is.
Yeah, that's simple is best.
That's why I love Mignola. I try to take most of the lines that I have, try to understand his heart, because I'm self-taught. So I tried to, first I started to trace the old Marvel and DC comics, and then I tried to look at a drawing and do it myself, but always with the books in front of me. And when I started being serious on illustration and drawing, 20 years ago, I didn't have what we have now. You in the click of a button, you have everything in front of you. And then I started maybe 10 years ago, a little bit more, watching Proco channel on YouTube, and I've learned a lot, but always, and that bothers me a lot, always with reference, and I don't know how to do almost anything without a reference, because I was so into having reference on everything. I can do perfectly a portrait without tracing it, whatever, but I have to look at something, and that's what bothers me, and that's why I want to to find a way of not doing it. But I'm going backwards, and getting good on portraits and on realism took me a lot of years, and now to try to trying to learn everything again. It's just killing me right now, because I don't know what to do. If I know how to be, I used to draw, on the beach or in a coffee shop, looking at people and drawing for a couple of minutes, and I was able to do that. But I have to do everything with reference, and that bothers me a lot.
Well, I think you're beating yourself up too much, because over time you will find that you'll get further and further away from that reference. So you're in a process right now. Good, bad, or indifferent, it is what it is. Embrace it, go through it, and you'll get through it. And when you get on the other side of it, you'll be a much better artist for it. Quit beating yourself up, because that does no good. So just don't quit fixating on where you're not. Concentrate on where you are, and get through it, because there's no shortcut to that, and you know that, and that's why you're frustrated, but just embrace it and get through it. And again, quit beating yourself up, because that's just counterproductive. And maybe quit looking so much at what other people are doing, because that in itself can handcuff you mentally. Just do you.
Yeah, good
One
advice.
thing.
Thanks.
One thing I heard from he was a background painter for animation for Disney. Don't ask me what his name is. He's over there with Aaron Blaze on Aaron Blaze's site. But he was talking about he had his mentor. He'd been painting by himself for a while. His mentor was coming to visit him, and his mentor's looking over the paintings he's painted. And he said, "You know what your problem is? Is you keep looking at at what you're painting." And it's like, what do you mean? He says, you get used to what you see, and this happens with color, and it has a tendency to. I'm not going to say this. I'm not going to justly say this. Let's see if I can find the name of the artist, because I do have his color workshop. But basically, your eyes adjust to what you see. So what you do is you glimpse it, and then you come back and you paint it. Like you see a piece of grass, don't sit there and focus on the piece of grass. Try and pick out the colors. See it. Use your mind. Kind of like how you close your eyes and you can see that image. Mm-hmm. See the color. Go to the page and do it from your mind, and that might be what could help you with your reference.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's great.
Instead, okay, you see a guy holding a coffee cup. You see it, got it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. and then come to the page and just draw it. Don't look back at the reference. And it's gesture drawing, really. Yeah, is what it is.
And when you're struggling, just break it down to its basic forms: cylinder this way, cylinder that way, a wedge for the hand, and just dissect it and put down the simple forms and build from there.
Yeah, good advice. Thanks.
But you have a style. Don't worry about that.
Yeah.
Everybody does. You can't. It's what it says. Say if Well, it's just like what John was saying as far as animators are concerned earlier, and they had to direct, how to draw it. Everybody's going to do something different, regardless. That's just going to come out of it. You're going to see something different than what somebody else sees.
And that's true, and that's the thing about, if you're guiding others, everybody draws a certain, their own particular style, and if even if you're just experimenting, you're still going to be interpreting something differently. And one of the things is when you're doing an animation series, or you've got a whole bunch of people working on the same project, characters. Well, sometimes in a feature film, for example, you could be in the old days. It was a thing of being you would cast because you did a certain type of personality, or you did comedy, or you did action, and what happens is then you get a lead animator who does that very well and is the best in that studio, and then you get a bunch of people who are under him or her, and they're probably cast also the same way. So you got to have similar approaches, and then you have something to share. Otherwise, if you have somebody who does super realistic movement, and you have somebody who underneath you who is just cartoony all the way, that's not going to work,
right?
So but when you're casting and you're developing, you will find yourself going, your muscle memory. That's a thing. You have a and certain things form a certain way, and things start coming out. It's like your handwriting. When you start off, you're trying. Again, this goes back to old school cursive writing.
Cursive writing. What's that? No, I'm just kidding.
What's that? Yeah. There you go. That's the thing. Okay, so let's, for example, the way Rodney is working his pieces is very different from what I do. Okay, Rodney is drawing, and his whole approach is much more realistic than I could do. Even though it's a fantasy character, you're looking at a way where it all makes technical sense of some sort. I'm drawing skulls and cartoony stuff,
right.
And this is our handwriting. As for example, see the way you're inking, where you're drawing, that's your handwriting.
Yeah.
And so the same way with cursive writing, that's how you understood holding your pencil or your pen and your writing script, and it's all the same. It's basically 26 letters, and it's your interpretation of how those letters look in the cursive style, or even a block printing style.
Kind of like a calligraphy in a way.
Oh, definitely, that's what it was.
Yeah.
So yeah, cursive writing, like saying, and I'll start cursing.
No, but what's interesting? You say that I never even took in consideration. We talk about comic book artists and their style having to meet what you're trying to convey in the book, what the writer's trying to convey. We talked about it last week with Bloodwing Angel, and but it never occurred to me that there's actually going to be animators who are better at certain actions and certain movements.
Oh yeah,
they have to be cast into certain scenes.
Yes. Now this is motion capture. This is when you.
Yeah.
I mean, even when they would do reference, you still had to be able to draw and think funny, for example. But this is again, drawing a character, standing, and just sitting and what have you. It's not just the technical aspect of getting the form correct and the balance correct. The most effective and the most entertaining drawings sometimes are the funniest.
Yeah.
And they don't have to be slapstick. It's just a whimsical way of approach in the posing.
Yeah.
Or in the movement. I mean, the Ministry of Silly Walks and Monty Python, that's just silly stuff.
Yeah.
But you have to be able to walk funny and think funny and get that on page. And that's entertaining. Now, you could be very dramatic, but drama is, as the old say, is drama is hard. It's easy. Comedy is hard.
Yeah. I've heard that. If I've heard acting can be taught, comedy cannot. But yeah, I guess it's true. I mean, you would have to know how to do comedic timing. Would have to be in your repartee. I don't know if that's right for it or not, but
yeah. And there's really something to be said for guys and gals that are quick-witted. It's almost the same thing as getting the timing right on a reaction. Because in Pitter Patter I do a lot of gags, and it's the one character laying down the line and the other character reacting to it. And if you don't get that reaction right, it kind of falls flat.
This is Straight Man.
Yeah.
Well, like doing with Bloodwing Angel, for example, I have a very it's an animation, a classic animation style, and you'd think, okay, well, this is just going to be a cutesy kids thing, but it's not. It's a very serious piece. But that's the way it works best. If it's disarming and you're, it sometimes the artwork can really make an impression on you in terms of the story if it's told in a way that is unexpected. And for me, this came by very I didn't intend it to be that way because I wanted to hire somebody who would be able to work on it and be more serious and be scarier. Well, the one person that I could work with or thought I could work with, he said they'll pass and say, well, this is not my material. I just don't do this kind of stuff. And so I said, okay, well, I'll just do it myself. And I just said, okay, who knows what's going to happen with it? So, I mean, that's what happened. I mean, I do a funny bear stuff. I've got two kids. I've got all ages comics for young kids, under the ages of 7, under, and then I got the teenage stuff, and that's more, up until about the age of 11. But it's all still within my style. Yeah. I just, it just happens that way for me.
Right.
So, just keep drawing, and your handwriting and your style will appear eventually.
Yeah. Art is a form of communication. Art is only as good as it communicates. Style is just one's accent. Yeah. I'll say that. I kind of like that. Style is an accent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's an accident.
Yeah, that's true too.
Yeah. Yes. Indeed.
Style natural style will just happen after a period of time of just flailing about, but you have to be consistent and do it, and then suddenly it'll show up.
Yeah, that's how my dark style happened. I was inking, and I didn't close well a certain part of the page, and then most of the drawing stayed black. So that's how I started to do it. That's with a happy mistake, like Russ used to say.
So it was one of those. Oh, hey, I like that. I'm going to start doing it like that. No,
Yeah.
That's the best kind. It's the best kind, and that's how you come up with something unique. So anyway, it's up at we're at an hour and 26 minutes in.
Mm-hmm.
Already? Oh man.
Yeah.
It happens. When I'm working, it's not happening. That's so fast.
It does. It does. Let's go around the room and tell everybody where we can find each other and all that nice stuff. Rodney, I guess that you're on the bottom. We'll get you to go first, sir.
Alrighty. You can find me on Instagram at Rodney_Fyke. That's FYKE. You can find me on Facebook at Rodney Fyke Art. You can find me on Thursday Night Throwdown or Friday Night Trawl on my YouTube channel. It has a YouTube channel. Hasm.com is our flagship spot. HAZZUM.com, where you can find all of our books, titles such as Peanut Pudding and Jelly, Unchained, Roadkill Rampage, and Pitter Patter.
All right.
And here on Saturday mornings with y'all.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right, Mr. Celestri, sir, let them know where we can find you, and tell us a little bit about your Kickstarter real quick.
Okay. Kickstarter, quick. It just launched this morning. It's on, it's Bloodwing Angel. And just check that out. I've got, I think there's some in the, there's something in a link in the comments here, but go to Kickstarter, type in John Celestri or Bloodwing Angel Chronicles. And this one here is titled Bloodwing Angel, Michael Gives Demons the Finger, the Flaming Finger.
Which in the context of the story is even...
That's because Michael has a flaming finger. So yes, Bloodwing Angel, Michael Gives Demons the Flaming Finger. There you go.
I love it.
All right. Awesome. All right, MarV. Tell what we're looking. There's that style.
Yeah. Hopefully I can keep it. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram, MarV Sin Killer. Twitter, I have a profile there, but I forget all the time about Twitter. That's where you can find my stuff, the Sin Killer. Right now I finished and I'm going to print hopefully next week, Gabriel Reaper of Souls, and I'm starting. I already start working on my second chapter of 4, Michael Hunter of Men. So hopefully I'll be doing this in 6-7 months. And hit me up, and you can find me here every Saturday also. So come and join us.
Yeah,
thanks.
Absolutely. And usually you find Mike Jimmy here too. Mike Jimmy's out there working hard at selling some books. So we wish him luck. Keep him in mind. Of course, Mike Jimmy also has Life on Korra and everything. So if you can't find him on Facebook, come back here, and I'm sure he'll tell you next Saturday. Oh, and his Hung on Animation on Thursday.
Yeah.
So check that out too. Let's see. This is where I got so far, guys.
Oh, cool.
Very cool.
And of course, again, this is
Very
for
cool.
the Legend of Sparkle Dog Don't Say Ahoo by Chad Perkins. And if you don't know Chad does have a podcast called Shot with Comics, where they take a couple of shots and review comics. It's actually pretty entertaining. Check that out. Of course, you can check me out on my Linktree, Facebook, all that other nice jazz is over there. right back here on the Independence Comic Network Tuesday at 8 p.m. for Dispatches from Outside the Box, where we scour the corners of geekdom to inspire you to create outside the box. This week, we'll be talking about stand-up comedians. So the jesters of modern day, right? And of course, hopefully, Lord willing, back here again next Saturday for Sketchy Saturday, and who knows what we're going to talk about. I thought we had some pretty good conversation today.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Quite enjoyable.
So
yeah.
And make sure we're not the only show out there on the ICN. You can go check out all of our other shows, and I'm sure there's going to be something that you'll enjoy. So until next week, have a good one.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Bye.